Okay? All right, so let's play a quick game. Ready to play a game? Let's play a game, and what I want you to do is I'm going to give you a statement, and we're going to play a game called Philosophical Chairs. Here's how Philosophical Chairs works. This row right here is when I make the statement. This is strongly agree. This would be agree. You're actually going to move yourself to a part of the room. This is somewhat agree. This is somewhat disagree. This is disagree, and this is strongly disagree all the way over here. Okay, and you're going to move yourself. Just leave all your stuff where it is because we're just going to have some open discussion about this. This is from C-SPAN Classroom. This is a video I want to show you here that sort of relates to this idea of the president using executive power to do things when Congress is moving too slowly, to do things when Congress is not moving fast enough. Now, this is a short clip that's actually part of a much longer one-hour interview from a couple of months ago following the State of the Union. But this is the clip that I was hoping to find, so let's take a look at this real quickly.
A set of concrete, practical proposals to speed up growth, strengthen the middle class, and build new ladders of opportunity into the middle class. Some require congressional action, and I'm eager to work with all of you. But America does not stand still, and neither will I. So wherever and whenever I can take steps without legislation to expand opportunity for more American families, that's what I'm going to do.
Wherever and whenever he can take steps to expand American opportunity, that's what he's going to do. So here's your next Philosophical Chairs discussion. Are you ready for this? Philosophical Chairs, ready? Move yourself around. When Congress moves too slowly, the president should bypass Congress when necessary to create greater social equality. When Congress moves too slowly, the president should bypass Congress to create greater social equality. Strongly agree, strongly disagree. Move, quick. Quick, 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 quick. I like you a lot. Because do you see what's happened? Very few of you moved a great deal here as it relates to executive power. Maybe one position over as it relates to whether it's domestic power or whether it's foreign relations powers, foreign affairs powers. Very few of you moved tremendously. It's a philosophy of the use of power and the philosophy of how the separation of powers should work. Okay? And the profound disagreement that exists in that. Okay? And how the separation of powers should work. Does that make sense to you? Now, let's get to you as far as kind of in relation to this whole thing. You moved over a couple of spots. What did you think about that?
About this last one?
Yeah.
Just that, you know, with all the members of Congress and everything, you've got this huge bureaucracy, and it can take a really long time to get things done. So sometimes you need someone to sort of jumpstart the process. You know, if the president does something, then Congress is going to be like, oh, you know, he just created this legislation or an executive order, and we need to, like, you know, they're either going to say, yeah, we agree with it, we need to create a law, or they're going to say, we don't agree with that, we need to create something else that'll change it.
Mm-hmm.
So it might start then.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Yes?
I think that would just create conflict if the president just bypassed Congress on that, because Congress is there for that reason specifically. Like, they are there so that different opinions are there to make laws, and yeah, it might take a longer amount of time, but in the end it's going to turn out with a better result because you're going to have opinions from all different walks of life.
Yes,
and
more
so
minds, again, more brains.
More
brains looking at this thing, which is kind of where you're in this somewhat disagree. You don't mind the president even acting as the leader on that and saying this is the direction we should be going and using influence and authority to try and accomplish that. Why way over here again?
Well, if something's taking that long to process, there has to be some kind of problem.
I like that. I like that a lot. And the problem, does it have to be something profound in the problem of what they would want the end result to be? It doesn't. They could agree on the end result, doesn't it? They can agree on the end result. The problem would be here that maybe they don't disagree on the end result, they just agree in the process for how to get there. And does the president have the authority to say, but doggone it, I'm president and I'm going to do it my way and you can just get over it? Some presidents have said, yes, that's how things have to work. Schlesinger talked about, as we talked about the imperial presidency earlier, that the use of influence is what, you know, many presidents have adopted as their mantra. Okay? Others have said, no, I'm here to show you how Congress can work as within the system, as Turley's talking about, without creating that sort of constitutional tipping point that I'm here to show you how we can work within the system. All right, I know you've got tons of questions. We're gonna need to move on though, because I do want to show you another piece to this. Okay, everybody understands where we were going with this? All right, back to your original seats quickly. Now I want to give you some specific concrete examples of how this executive power, and again, as I pointed out, this is not a slam on any one presidency. We've talked about the expansion of executive power as being sort of since Teddy Roosevelt, the modern presidency. This expansion of executive power being something that's just taken a century or more here to develop. And so because it has taken that long, this is not a slam on any one president. Every president has written executive orders. Every president has written, modern president, has written these ideas of signing statements. So this is not something new. This is just a clip here that I want to show you of Jonathan Turley. This is from January of 2013. So this is shortly after the president's inauguration, 8 days after his inauguration. And he's talking about the president's first term and how the president has done in the relation of protecting civil liberties and civil rights. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to stop this periodically and we're going to have some discussion.
Washington Journal continues.
And George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley joins us now to discuss his views on President Obama's use of his executive powers as he begins his second term in the White House. And Mr. Turley, I want to start with your take on Obama's inaugural address last week and what you described in your USA Today column as a difference between civil rights and civil liberties under this administration.
Well, the inauguration speech was picking up a very common, almost mantra in the Obama administration of achieving equality, which is a noble and important goal. And I think that the most significant thing about the inauguration speech, which I particularly thought was wonderful, was his reference to gay rights and to the gay movement. And it established his commitment to equality. So I want to note, he has not been particularly aggressive in supporting gay rights in his first administration. In court, his administration.
All right, so we just watched the first 4.5 minutes of this, and Turley brings up some really interesting things. Let's talk first about this idea of civil liberties and civil rights and the president's record on that as it relates to the executive use of power. Which of these does Turley talk about here as being pretty much consistent with where you would expect the president to be? Civil liberties. Well, now, what were some examples of some civil liberties violations that he was talking about? Privacy issues, surveillance issues. Did the people who elected the president in his first term anticipate that some of the things that President George W. Bush had put into place would probably be reversed as it related to Guantanamo, as it related to many of those issues? Expected those things to be overturned and reversed. They weren't overturned and reversed as rapidly as they had thought. And so it was a bit surprising to them that some of these things were taking place. What about in the civil rights area? What about in that area of civil rights?
Well, that was more like empty promises, because it said that in his second inauguration speech that he was really passionate about these ideas that in his first term he didn't show any action to.
Yes.
In terms of gay rights.
Yes. In specific terms to some of these civil rights issues. All right.
He wasn't taking liberties that he wasn't supposed to, or that this is more of a newer concept of him taking strides that maybe go against Congress. He
also then says that in this first 4.5 minutes that President Obama has achieved the imperial presidency to a degree that Nixon and George W. Bush never did. What does he mean by that?
He's gotten more power in the executive branch.
More power, and that power is unilateral and unchecked. Even members of his own department, even members of his own party are not checking him on this power. And the opposite party may be trying, but they're certainly lacking any kind of momentum to be able to do that. And so they're saying members of his own party are not checking him, and he believes in some of the articles that we read earlier and what he's going to say here now, that is to their peril. If they don't check that power quickly, if they don't do something to try and stop and prevent this, that it could result in some catastrophic outcomes for what they believe to be might happen if the opposite party were to come to power in the executive branch. Would the Democrats allow, as we talked about, would they allow the types of uses of executive power that President Obama has enjoyed if a Republican president were in power? No, there would be a very opposite reaction to many of those things. So it becomes more political than a government power issue. Let's take a look quickly here again at what he's going to show you.
And I want to take you to a comment by Sam Walker in a recent piece. This was just last week in the Huffington Post. He's a historian, a civil libertarian, criminology professor, and bounce this off of you, Jonathan Turley of GW. He writes, Sam Walker writes, Obama shares with his predecessors a profound sense of duty to protect the country, not wanting to risk another Pearl Harbor or 9/11 attack. Additionally, as former CIA Director George Tenet pointed out, the President's daily brief includes a steady flow of reports about possible threats to the country. The intelligence agencies, meanwhile, have an interest in exaggerating such threats, while the opposition party is always ready to accuse the President of being weak on national security. All of these factors push presidents to opt for security over liberty on vital issues, and Barack Obama is no exception.
Really, really fascinating article here that he brings up in this particular discussion here. And he's talking about how the president shares with his predecessor, particularly George W. Bush, a profound sense of duty to protect the country, not wanting to risk any other Pearl Harbor or 9/11 attack. Additionally, he says, George Tenet, as George Tenet, CIA director, pointed out, the president's daily brief, what's the daily brief, do you suppose? What's the president getting in his daily brief? Yeah, the president gets an introduction every morning as to what's going on, what are the major issues, what's the threats out there. Includes a steady flow of reports about possible threats to the country. The intelligence agencies have an interest in exaggerating such threats. Why would they have an interest in doing that?
That's their work.
It's their job. And if they're not exaggerating, hey, this could be a problem, this could be a problem, then what becomes the perception of what they do? And why do we need you? Yeah, so I'm going to exaggerate this, because if I don't exaggerate this, then it may perceive, or the perception might be, then it's really not that big a deal. Or let's say the perception becomes that it's not that big a deal, and I haven't exaggerated it, and it turns into a 9/11. Then who's in trouble for not? Exactly, because you didn't bring this to me as a serious issue. You just said, hey, well, there's some people out there who are taking some classes in how to fly large jumbo jets, and we're a little concerned, and they're probably, but don't worry about it. No, they're exaggerating these threats. And then, while the opposition party is always ready to accuse the president of being weak on national security, what's the president supposed to do when on the one hand you've got national security coming to you and saying, major threat, major threat, major threat, you've got the opposite party over here threatening you with, if you don't do something, we're going to call you weak and you're going to lose elections. And then the president's reaction to that has to be one of decisiveness and action. Does that bother you in the relationship to this idea or notion of executive authority and executive power when it comes to the president's ability to create kill lists like Turley is talking about here?
Because what if he's acting on intelligence that may not be 100% true, or changes, like the whole thing with Benghazi, there was many different stories, so like, what if they act on the first story? Well, that's not really what happened.
Right, right. And the president is looking at that and simply saying, I'm going to...
Kill list for personal gain. I'm not saying that a president...
Sure. But there are plenty of people out there going, I wonder if my name's on the kill list.
Exactly.
Am I a threat? All right. Thank you guys very, very much. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss you at this point.